Hey, look who it is. It's Professor Farnsworth. I don't believe it. Believe it or not. Oh, boy. You're listening to the Nerd Off podcast. And it's right here. I know that I can do better. Hey, this is Billy West from Futurama. And here comes Professor Farnsworth again. I know I messed up the last one, so this is take 2. Good news, everyone. You're listening to the Nerd Off podcast. Your one stop for this sort of thing.
Nerd On.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Nerd On, the podcast you didn't need, but you deserve, where all levels of nerd are welcome. Today, we have a very, very special episode.
Yes.
We are talking to our, see, I can't even use my words. I'm so excited.
It's really hard, I know.
This is,
But in celebration of 20 years of Futurama, we thought we'd just chill out and talk with the one and only Billy West. But a little bit of housekeeping before we get into that.
Fine.
I'm Josh.
Corey.
Caitlin.
Ollie. And my name's Tom.
And this episode is brought to you in part by our patrons over at
Patreon.
There it is.
You guys allow us to keep the lights on, and we appreciate you so much. If you are new to Patreon and don't know what that is, it's essentially a membership service where you can basically support your favorite creators like Nerd On, and you get goodies like bonus episodes, Discord server, discounts on merch, early access, all sorts of stuff.
Many, many things.
Yes, many, many things. But go and check out patreon.com/nerdontv.
Let's get into it.
Today, we are talking to an in-studio guest. I mean, this is really, really special.
Yeah.
For me specifically, I'm getting tingles. The voice of Philip J. Fry, Zapp Brannigan, Professor Farnsworth, Ren from Ren and Stimpy, to be exact, and the Red M&M, Billy West.
Hey.
Yeah.
Thank
my
you
gosh.
so much
Hello.
for
There's a
being
party
on the
going
show.
on here, everybody.
It is a
2,000 more
party.
voices, too.
Yeah.
So do you film these or is this audio?
Just audio.
This is just
It's
audio.
my favorite thing of all. I idolized radio people, and I used to listen to a guy named Stan Freberg when I was a little boy, and I grew up to meet him. And I listened to all his comedy records and all his radio shows. And I said, when I met him, I said, geez, I was telling him, I remember when you had Dawes Butler on your show. Dawes Butler was from Hanna-Barbera. He did Yogi and Huck and all those.
Nice.
And he told me, he was in the cast, and June Foray was in the cast and everything. And I just told him so much what I knew about him. And he said, you know more about me than I do. And I said, yeah, but you did so much. He said, well, I was a young guy, but it's like when I was doing Ren and Stimpy, I hadn't done like volumes of work. And so all these years go by, and somebody will do the same thing to me now. Hey, remember when you played that Percy Femur, a bully that beat up Roger on Doug? and I'll go, I have to really stop and think about it because they know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Which is I'm so honored. I'm very lucky,
It's one of those full circle moments,
It
You
is.
just go, whoa. All right.
Where you were meeting all of your idols, and now we're meeting ours.
Oh my
right.
God.
Yeah.
So
It's the time-space continuum.
Time is a construct, so you just never
right.
know.
Well, when I was very, very young, I mean, you're talking to one of the biggest nerds that ever lived. I don't
You are
mean,
welcome.
I don't mean in technical terms or anything like that. I used to do things to try and expand my consciousness because I was an abused child and I went inward. I used to have to look around every corner before I came out. I had to worry about getting screamed at or hit. And so I lived in my own world. And one day I took my father's Navy mirror. It was a survival mirror. If you were on an island, and the sun would make a signal to a
Yeah.
an airplane,
SOS kind of.
military craft.
Yeah.
So this came in handy because it was very small. And what I learned to do, I wanted to change my perception badly because I guess it's because I hated the world that I lived in and I was so fearful of it. So I was trying to create a new world. And I would walk down the hallways with this mirror to the side or underneath like this. And I would look down at it and I would see the ceiling and the hanging light, but it looked as if it was in front of me. As I walked down the hall, I had to step over the light, because it felt like I was going to trip over it. And I said, I like this. No wonder I spent some time as a drug addict and a drunk. Yeah, you wanted to change your
perspective
Right.
change.
Yeah. But
sometimes
I
you
mean,
need
but
it.
I was forced to do those things and I loved radio so much and I loved TV. And back in those days, you couldn't capture television. There was no way to preserve it and own it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like watching the coolest thing I ever saw in my life and I'd be desperate, sweating that in 5 seconds it'll be gone forever and I'll never see it again.
Yeah.
That was a desperation that me and all the guys like me and women had. You were trying to absorb it on the run. And then if someone said, so what'd you do last night? Oh, I saw this really cool show. Oh, yeah, what was it? Oh, it was The Man from U.N.C.L.E., a spy show. I didn't see it. Here, let me show you how it went.
Right.
And I would do that. I used to tape it as soon as I got my first reel-to-reel tape recorder, a little square one with oxide tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even cassettes yet. But I used to tape reams of dialogue and go listen to it in my room. And
Wow.
people, my mom didn't know what to make of me. I talked to my aunt once on the phone and she said, you were a weird kid.
Sounds
Yeah.
right for the nerd course.
But I was my own best friend,
Yeah.
I would go off and I'd wander around and all of a sudden I'd start doing commentary. Even when I was really young, like 3 years old, I used to take the potato masher out of the drawer and set it up in a window. And so the handle was sticking up. It looked like a microphone.
Oh.
Nice.
So, I mean, I was at that, interested in that world right from day one.
You just
Very
kind of
early.
knew,
Creativity was
without
oozing.
knowing, you knew what you were headed for.
yeah.
Yes. And there
to
was
grasp
also some cereal. I forget what it was. It was probably like some dopey cereal like Kix or something. And on the back, if you took the coupon, you could send it in. And there was this little round microphone.
Oh.
that
Oh, when
would
you send
sit
it in
on
for the
table,
prizes
and
and
it had a
stuff.
screen on it. And I wanted it so badly, so we sent the coupon in, and it actually came. I saw the square little cardboard box. You get it out of there, and it doesn't work. You're supposed to hook it up to a radio,
Yeah.
No.
but it doesn't work. But I didn't care.
Yeah,
I did not care. It was the whole idea
You
of
had the
having
mic.
it and talking
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
It's tangible that you can hold
Right.
on to.
Yeah. But the desperation is what gave us our strengths.
Yeah.
Being deprived of stuff. So you wanted to hear it and see it so bad you'd find a way to recreate it like your life depended on it.
And
Yeah,
so
the
now
room-
it's all on like discs and stuff. And now
know.
it's
Yeah,
like, hey, did you see that? No, but I'll watch it next week.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
restrictiveness like gives you that room for creativity. You know, like it allows you to think of different ways to like
Approach
reimagine
it.
things and do.
Uh-huh.
Because you only had it the once.
But, you're learning a set of rules in a field that you knew barely existed. I mean, I didn't even think of the field of voiceover. I knew there was these adults that were responsible for what you were hearing. And I said, they must be really crazy people. I knew at a very young age that I said, these are people, but what kind of people?
Right.
And asking like that, it was almost like you're putting it out there,
Yeah.
because you would be one of those people.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, something like that, if you go looking for it, it's like anything else. If you go looking for love and you've got your specific type in mind, you ain't going to meet anybody decent.
Yeah.
You'd be better off going to a sawmill town in Michigan, marrying the waitress
Yeah,
at the
right.
diner rather than go around Hollywood.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Thanks for the advice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tom.
Real quick.
I mean, with that, one thing that I read about you is that you didn't really get into radio and voiceover until your 30s. And it sounds
Yes.
like you've been into it since you were a little kid. Like,
I was as a totally, I guess, obsessed kid.
Yeah.
That I loved the sound of people's voices on the radio. There were announcers like Paul Harvey. Good day, Americans. Hello, Americans. This is Paul Harvey.
Wow.
Good day. You know, and there was this guy, he sounded like a big, mean bruiser, but he was articulate, and his name was Alex Dreyer.
Oh.
You know, and he sounded like another one of my heroes named Jackson Beck.
Okay.
Jackson Beck. He did Bluto in the Popeye cartoons.
Oh.
He did, oh, God. Oh, in the Little Caesars commercials. Not the guy that went pizza.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
That was the ad exec for the account.
Okay.
Oh,
He won all the Cleos, but Jackson Beck went, at Little Caesars, you can get a crazy 8 topping. You know his voice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
But I mean,
100%.
one day to wake up and actually dial them up so they existed once more around me, you know, even though it was me doing it,
Yeah.
was like magic to me. And I didn't know anybody else that gave a dismal damn, you know, about that stuff.
Yeah.
And comic books.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, right.
what's so funny is like you're in a room full of people that appreciate every single thing that you did. Like, I mean it when I say like you are a voice of my childhood. So like Ren and Stimpy was one of those things that I know I wasn't supposed to watch. But I look back and there are references that I make in my brain. Like my wife's a big fan of yours as well.
Wow.
And we have jokes that will run between each other because of Ren and Stimpy of like,
Yeah.
and it's just like, that's what you've done.
You sick little monkey. Hey, Ren, will you button me?
Perfect. Gave me goosebumps.
I picked a magic nose goblin. Greenpeace.
So how does it feel to kind of come full circle and sort of things, such as like you said one of your heroes was in Popeye to then go on and play Popeye or look up to people like Mel
Jack
Blanc.
Mercer was the voice of Popeye
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah.
He was this little, very reticent looking, worried little man. I don't know if he was worried, but he did look like a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And he was on To Tell the Truth once. And they said, one of these 3 guests is the actual voice of Popeye. And then they do what the guy wrote.
Right.
I was the voice of Popeye the Sailor Man for how many decades? And then the celebrity panel would ask them questions. You've seen the game
Yeah,
show
and they try to
network.
guess what he is.
Yeah, and there's this little guy sitting there. One guy was very verbose and had a lot to say. So they were thinking, well, that's his business. He's on a microphone and his voice is in media, television and cartoons at the movies. So he said, my name is Jack Mercer and I'm the voice of Popeye. You know, and I recognized it from its undertone.
Wow.
Really?
Yep. And
Trained ear, yeah.
so we all sucked at doing Popeye. It was just, it didn't sound right. It sounded
Not
like
an
a
easy thing to do.
Well,
buzzsaw.
and I saw an old interview where you said tube and throat singing is what taught you how to do Popeye.
Right. Yeah, because I couldn't ask Jack Mercer.
Not exactly.
How the
Yeah.
hell do you know? But I found it, honestly.
Was that like was that a long process to learn how to manipulate that in your voice?
I went to go see it at the theater with my friend Tony Visconti. Tony Visconti produced a lot of David Bowie's best stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Holy moly.
he was the producer, musical director, everything. And he called me up and he said, "You might be interested in this." and I go to the theater with him, and it's the story of this blind folk singer, this big guy who was blind. He sat home and he listened to the radio. He wrote Big Old Jet Airliner for Steve
yeah.
Miller.
Yeah. Oh,
I think his
love
name
that.
was Paul Pena or something like that. And he would listen to a world band shortwave radio, and he'd turn it to this channel. And it wasn't static, except he thought that it wasn't coming in. It sounded like a human, but it wasn't. And it was Tuvan throat singers, some program on. And he was so fascinated that he had to go to Tuva to go meet them.
Whoa.
Because they would produce different tones in their voice.
Yeah,
They
the
would,
low and
You know, they would do
Yeah.
a whistle over it. You know, you hear the whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a pentatonic scale. Ba, 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 ba. And, you know, and then I said, they're running, it's cowboys. They're, you know,
It's a horse.
Middle East,
horse
I mean, not
community.
Middle Eastern, Eastern
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asian cowboys who they had a horse beat culture. You know, that's where we got our country music from riding on a horse. And that's where we got our early songs from. And out there, they have the same thing, and you hear the same kind of intro. They were using a banjo, and somebody
Yeah.
else had a flute, you know, ding, 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 and then you hear,
A little different. Wow.
That's just
so it was like Popeye.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yoo-hoo, olive oil. I brung you some flowers.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's so cool to
It's
hear.
almost like two
So
voices
his
going at once.
high voice, you know, I brung you some flowers, and then the low voice, an octave or two lower, but even because
Right.
it doesn't create what they
I was
call a
gonna say it sounds like
sine
an
wave.
octave. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's even. It doesn't fight itself. So it's like you know,
Wow.
that fights itself.
Yeah.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. You. And
Fascinating.
That's amazing.
and here's this little guy. My name is Jack Mercer. You know, just more stuff to make my head explode.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
of
and-
things being completely different than it's that perspective shift. So you were
Yeah.
expecting one thing and it's completely different.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and I feel like voiceover, especially perspective shift, is what it's all about. Because you have to shift your perspective because you have nothing to go off of.
Well, nobody can see these people.
Yeah.
So you've got this much, a little flesh reed to create heavens and hells. And, you know, when I think about it, you can act,
That's
you
pretty
can
cool.
move your arms around and, you know, make faces all you want. I do all that, but it's because I
Yeah. Right.
I throw myself into things. I've stood up on chairs and leaned over to the microphone, which was below me, to scream as loud as I could. You know.
And it's proven to work, you know.
Yeah.
like,
Right.
And-
Obviously, you're doing something right.
There's a reason why your voice is really recognizable. So
But you know, and I saw shows like the Jack Benny show, and they're all on YouTube. You can go back and watch this Christmas episode with Jack Benny trying to buy gifts for his staff. You know, gee, I bet you Rochester would love this watch. You know, you know, and there's so many characters that were on it, but Mel Blanc was one of the characters on his radio show. This was while he was doing the Warner Brothers cartoons, and he played this clerk who would sell people, you know, watches or gifts and everything. And Jack Benny wanted to buy a watch from him. Oh, yes, sir, this is a very fine watch. You know, and that's what Mel
Yeah.
sounded like.
Yeah.
It just freaked me out a
Oh,
little
you're
bit.
going to love that watch. You know, and he says, can I get it gift wrapped? Oh, yeah, sure. The gift department is right over there, sir. And then he comes back and the gift is all, and then he goes, do you think you could undo this? So I forgot to write something on the card. You know, and he goes, I suppose we could do that, you know. And
Yeah.
he's patient and he's patient. And then every time something gets wrapped, he comes back and he wants to change another
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
Finally, Mel Blanc loses it, but here's this little guy standing behind a counter, and he's a total force of nature. It's one of the greatest things I ever saw. You got to see it. You got to look it up. Where Mel Blanc is, you know, had it with that guy, and he's ready to explode. But Jack Benny comes back. He goes, "Oh, clerk, now what?" You know, what?
Oh my God.
He loses his mind. And then there was another time where Jack Benny came back and he went, yeah, can I help you?
Just a manipulation of voice, like on any other.
But the thing is you can enjoy that without even looking
that's
at
what I
it.
was just gonna say. Yeah. It could be
'Cause
another
they
radio
were all
show.
radio performers, you know, and
Yeah.
they knew what sounded funny, and just the addition that they could be there and, you know, not overact. They were Jack Benny was kind of broad, but that was his style.
Yeah. He was
Yeah.
a serious guy reacting to the crazy around him, so to speak.
But he set the template to shows like Seinfeld,
Yeah.
where he's sort of bedeviled by all these crazy people around him.
Yeah.
You know, and he surrounded himself with super talents, and that's what Jack Benny did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it
Smart
was just
move.
one more place to find stuff. And I met when I got into radio, I met June Foray and Bill Scott, Rocky and Bullwinkle,
Mm.
and they came to the radio station, and I was just thrilled to death looking at the two
I
of
bet.
them doing their thing, you know. And then they left, and I was like, wow, there they go. So I went out to lunch, and I came back, and there was a Post-it note that said, Bill and June want you to come to New England Life Hall with them tonight to narrate,
No kidding.
to be the announcer for the Metal Moon Munching Mice episode. So I was doing the William Conrad. And the plucky squirrel flew to the top of the windowsill. You know,
Wow.
he was just,
Yeah,
he had
yeah.
a big voice, and he was really cool.
Your ability to take on like a character
Yeah.
and a voice to such a minute degree is very impressive.
Yeah.
Like it's
Thank
like
you.
very surreal at moments where it's just like, oh my God, you are that spot on.
Everyone at home, just close your eyes
Yeah,
while
right.
you listen to this entire episode, please.
Well, I was going to
Also
say,
driving.
because you have taken on some quite established characters, and I was just wondering what kind of either fear, excitement comes along with stuff like doing Bugs Bunny. Or I think I read your favorite's Elmer Fudd, if I'm not mistaken.
He's kind of my favorite because he's like a brain dead hunter. And nothing funnier, I guess. I shouldn't say that. But he was like a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And he would go from a 3-year-old to a screaming maniac in a split second, like 0 to 60.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, shh, be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. And then he would say, oh, wait, say it, pues, rabbit.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
he would just get like manic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so sorry.
I was just gonna follow it up with it. When you approaching a character like Elmer Fudd or Bugs Bunny or anything like that, is there? I'm sure there's a fair share of excitement, but also maybe some, if there's any fear that goes along with that. Or
Yes, for Bugs
I'm
Bunny.
Sure. Oh right.
Yeah,
for Space
because
Jam, right?
because you have to pick an era. He sounded different in different eras, like in the early 40s. He sounded different. You know, he was like, so long, Screwy. See you in St. Louis.
Yeah, right.
You know, he's like, what's up, Doc? You know, and then his voice got a little higher in the 50s, and
yeah.
ooh, don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Ain't I a little stinker?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's really cool, man.
And
That's
you know, I did Space Jam as Elmer and Bugs.
Yeah.
And every time we were recording, some nosy person would pop in the door. He sounds too Jewish.
Coach.
Yeah. Or another person would
note.
come in. He says, he's too Brooklyn. You got to sweeten him up a little. He's too tough. You know, and finally it's like, shut up.
Right.
And there's a final word. Mwah! Goodbye.
Just to follow that up, you mentioned about voices changing over time, and I read an interview you did a while back pointing out if you listen to Homer Simpson from
Yes.
season 1 to like episode 800, it changed, right? So like a character you come up with yourself, I was wondering how much prep time you get before going into something like Futurama with Fry, and how they change over time.
Well, you have to go with what you did and what they liked in the audition. And Professor Farnsworth was just not as angry and old,
yeah.
you know, and pissed off. He was sort of he wasn't gruff. His voice wasn't raspy. You know, he went from, oh my, you know, to, oh my. You know, so, I mean, but it finds itself.
I was
It
gonna
be-
say, is
it-
that natural?
It
Like-
becomes what it's supposed to be.
yeah.
You just
Yeah.
kind of let them take over.
you let it
It
go.
kinda
But I
sounds
mean,
like you really, like you said, you get into something and you're like, yes, I'm Billy West, but now I'm Farnsworth.
but Matt Groening told me, like, we're doing Disenchantment,
Mm-hmm.
and he said now that a couple of seasons have been recorded, he said now we know who they are, and it's like we learn the same thing. Now we understand who they are and how we can, go off without asking permission. Just trying stuff.
Yeah.
I always wondered about that process of going in. Like, what was that like going in for maybe one part? And then was it just the fact that you gave great auditions on every character for Futurama that they were like, yeah, let's just have him do all the voices?
Go in for one thing and
does
end
that
up
work?
with 50.
When I went in, there was a room, and there had to be about 100 people in that room waiting to audition.
Wow.
Oh, there was Ryan Stiles was there, and I said, "Oh man, he's gonna mop the floor with the audition. What am I even doing here?" But the thing was, I looked at the characters, and I was so respectful because it was Matt Groening's stuff, and this is new.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh my," it's like here I am, like at that crossroad. You're gonna do or die, or what are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
And so the choices kind of came naturally for me. Professor Farnsworth, they gave me details. They said he was 147 years old.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, he must be like rickety and fart dust and all that.
Yeah, right.
Like a mummy. And I used to kind of shake physically.
Wow.
147 years old.
You have to own
Right.
that role.
You don't really have to. It's just that's
It's funner too.
I
fun.
would throw myself into
Yeah,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure it
it
makes a
translated.
Mhm.
But
Did you start with like one character on Futurama?
I was asked to audition for the professor
Mm-hmm.
and for Zoidberg.
Yeah.
And the Zapp Brannigan character hadn't come into being yet
oh.
because they were going to use Phil Hartman.
Right.
And then
right.
how did you expand into being most of the roster?
Including basically the main character.
Yeah.
Well,
Philip J. Fry.
I did an audition for Fry on that first look-see.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it, and I said, there's unbelievable voice people in this world. There's incredible mimics. And the broader a character is, or the more cartoony, the easier it is for them to grab a hold of something.
Yeah.
But the thing that's most elusive is somebody's real voice.
Right.
It's
So
true.
I remember when I was 25, I was tentative, except I thought I was cool, but I'd go to say something and I couldn't find the right word.
Yeah.
Or I was a complainer. I complained a lot, and that wended its way into Fry, because I'd be
Yeah.
on stage, I'd play guitar, and oh man, I broke a string. Shit! Now what am I gonna do? I was whiny and complaining.
With that, you kind of use your 25-year-old self for Fry. Was there a lot of part of you that you used for Doug?
Yeah. Except I didn't sound like Doug when I was 11.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I sounded more of like on the way to being a teenager. And my voice would break in certain places because you don't know if you're a man or a boy. Your hormones certainly haven't established that yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. That's
So that
Not quite,
crack,
but sort of.
I have something to say about that.
that still happens to me now.
all the
Not
time.
much hasn't changed.
So, I thought about that a lot, and they liked it and they remembered it. They had another guy and another woman doing Fry and Leela, but it didn't work out
Mm-hmm.
for some reason.
Mm.
And then they went back to me. Do you remember what you did?
Yeah.
And I most certainly did because it was a real deliberate choice.
Right.
Yeah. You remembered the decision that went behind it, and you're like, oh, it's me when I was in my
'cause
20s.
See, I'm talking like him now because I'm thinking about him.
Yeah, right.
But he was like, he was a little put out. He's everything he should be at 25.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was 25 and I was like a wise ass, a drunk and a crazy, and I was a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and I screamed and sang rock and roll. That's probably how I got my lungs from.
Yeah, right.
Like screaming full throat. So when I
Wow.
did Ren and Stimpy, it was like, what else you want?
Yeah. With Futurama, I read that because you did so many characters. Often
When is the 20th anniversary coming up too, right?
Next week.
yeah, next
Yeah.
week is the 20th anniversary. But they oftentimes when you play different characters, they recorded at different times. But you had recorded all in one section, correct?
Yes.
And was that difficult for you to go from? Because I feel like
Or easier. Yeah.
easier. Like, is it something that you had to really prepare for or get pumped for, or were you like, no, these voices I know, so this line is this person, this line is this person, and it's just easier, even physically and mentally, to do that?
I was a freak, when I was a kid, and I could make noises and come up with little voices for things, and I think that I was meant to do those things, like where it's consistent,
Yeah.
where the end of one thing isn't the beginning of another character.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
the line can get blurry,
Yeah.
and sometimes you hear the actual voice
Come
and
through.
you go, that guy's slipping.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just like, Doug Funny, painfully average 11-and-a-half-year-old, and this is my dog Pork Chop. Oh no, here comes Roger, my favorite bully. That's right, Funny. Vote for this.
So it's just a switch you can kind of flip.
Yeah, and
essentially.
young lady, bring me a sandwich from the dumpster. It's our 20th anniversary. Maybe I'll eat 20 bags of garbage next week.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Zoidberg.
and it's that
Zoidberg.
voice was an amalgam of two different people I had in mind from showbiz periphery.
Yeah.
One was Yiddish theater actor named Lou Jacoby. He was in the movie Arthur,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and he's the one that leaned into Arthur and goes, "What's it like to have all that money?" And then there was another guy named George Jessel. He was in a form of theater called vaudeville. This was before there was television. You could just get out of your house and go watch 12 acts until nightfall. One after the other. And he was one of those guys. Good evening, ladies and germs. And he had a marble mouth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you know the definition of a smart ass? A fellow that can sit on an ice cream cone and tell you what flavor it is.
Yeah.
And, it was like, it had to be the two of those because look at the face on Zoidberg. I said
yeah.
he's got all that cool meat hanging off it.
Cool.
It would have
Best
to be,
character designs.
it would have to be impaired to some degree, but not where you couldn't understand him.
Right.
I actually noticed this last time watching through Futurama that the MD on his door, the M has a quotes around it. This is not a real doctor.
Medical?
In a medical doctor, right.
Yeah.
Which I loved. And I
But
think they
the-
did an episode playing on how you came up with that voice a little bit as well, where he meets his vaudevillian uncle or something.
Oh, Harold Zoid.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was all washed
yeah.
up.
You do this thing like I've seen that you do for Zoidberg. It's like this click.
What is? Yeah.
Like I've
I
always
remember
like
seeing that.
wondered
the-
like
There's
how
some
you, it's
kind
like
of.
this,
Oh.
What?
Wow.
I just
That's right from Curly Howard from the
Yeah.
Three Stooges.
I just can't get
Oh.
because it's something like for me, like when I was growing up, I grew up on Looney Tunes, Ren and Stimpy, all those, and like I would practice voices, and when you'd hear something, I mean, it's like hearing Donald Duck is always one of those ones that people
Oh,
are
yeah.
like, "Can you do that?" And it's like it's the way that your air and blah blah blah.
It's
But
freakish.
that thing, I'm just like, how do you do
It's like mouth foley.
Yeah.
mouth
what?
foley?
Mouth foley.
Oh, wow. Well,
way to put
I
it.
mean, Clarence Nash was the first one I ever heard do that voice, and it was for Donald Duck, of course, which goes way, way back,
Yeah,
like before World War II, I think.
yeah.
Whoa.
Then there was a guy in the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I don't think he was Don Messick or Dawes Butler. I think he was a ringer that they brought in to do a character called Yacky Doodle.
Oh,
you know,
Yeah, right.
that stuff. And it was a takeoff on Donald Duck.
Yeah.
And but Dawes Butler and Don Messick were heroes to me, just like Mel Blanc and June Foray.
How is it to be compared to somebody like Mel Blanc? Because I've read that. I mean, you are.
It's frightening. It's beyond
Frightening.
It is. It's frightening.
Yeah.
Because of the, I don't know. I don't know. It's like looking at what? An old car, perfectly preserved, and you compare it to today and you go, they did everything right. Everything after the second that car was made was a step downward aesthetically and otherwise. You know?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. An original is an original.
Yeah,
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah, and like all the best work was done before any of us were born. And, you know, you can try, excuse me, there's a few actors that are assigned those roles. Before I did it, there was a guy named Jeff Bergman. Then there was another guy named Greg Burson. And I think Joe Alasky did it once. And then I heard they're going to do Space Jam 2, but I'm not in it.
Oh, okay.
So they will recast.
So
Yeah.
it's what you're saying. It's a step down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a step down.
Sit down.
No, I think it's in good hands. There's an actor. He's really good. I mean, real good. Scary good, named Eric Bauza. And I think they probably have him doing Elmer and Bugs. And it's like, hey, wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a champion of the craft. You know, that job was mine for the very day that I was doing it. I didn't expect, you know, to come back the next day. It's like, no, you're a day player. Maybe they
true.
decided against having you and they got someone else. It's like, I always lived like that. They weren't mine. I'd feel a little differently about, you know, characters I created.
Right, of course.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You make something from scratch that's yours, but if it's an amalgamation of other things, you don't feel as like that's not.
It was more of
You
an
didn't-
ode.
Yeah.
You were actually holding on to it for a minute. Like with Bugs, you're like, okay, this is mine for a little bit. It's
like
not
like a
mine.
baton.
And you want to be as damn good as you can possibly be every time you walk in.
Of course.
And that was one of my things that I clung to, was like always 1,000%. Just leave everybody their jaws hanging back and forth.
Yeah.
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 You mean you do with us. So.
Yeah, it's already
I mean, we're
happened
in
at
the
least
same
5 or
room with
6
you.
times.
Yeah. So
Yeah, just today. My
Wow.
goodness. Yeah, sorry.
I had
My
the-
jaw is kind of hanging now. From
I had just
the
one little
sheer
follow
talent.
up thing because it sparked a little thing. You said when you were 25, you were, you know, on stage saying the wrong things, that kind of thing. You try to say something would come out wrong,
Right.
And that's a very strong characteristic of Fry as a whole. Did you have any kind of input on, like, for example, one of my favorite lines he has is, I think Farnsworth says, "So what?" And he goes, "Why is those things?" And it's something I've held on to because I'm the same way. I'll try to say something else.
You know what it is? It's this form of abandon. Like where you start out and you give up,
Yeah.
but you keep talking because your mind is doing all the middle post production.
Yeah.
You know,
If we
putting
just
it
don't
toge-
stop
but
talking.
it don't come out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Fry, I heard beer makes you stupid. No, it doesn't. You know, I wasn't well thought out. My mind was in a million other places.
Yeah.
You know, I had OCD, I had ADHD. You know, it's a wonder I got through life, period.
You're right.
Yeah, I
Right.
was
But I think
severely
that's-
born with chronic low-level depression
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
until they invented something you could actually take for it.
yeah.
But I think little intricacies like that you guys have helped create with these characters have helped people like me especially relate to someone like Fry, and it's helped us out through a lot of things. Be like, he's all right, he's doing okay for everything he's been through, you know.
Well, I wanted him to be an everyman, and I liked the idea that he liked girls, you know, because I liked them, but I didn't know how to connect with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Preach.
I wasn't specifically after certain things with a girl. I was kind of in awe,
Yeah.
and I would just like, get tongue tied. And
It's Fry and Leela.
and you know what and I remember when I did have girlfriends, I was a project. for them. You know, this, fix the collar. Why do you have to go around like that? It was like my mom.
Oh my God.
And I wanted him to be a project for Leela.
Yeah.
You know, like she somehow has room in her heart for him, but she seems put out when he's around.
I mean, it only took her like what 7 seasons to finally like come around. I mean, they had I think he did a lot of work. I mean, just talking about the show specifically,
he put the work
the
in.
holophone, like all
on
of
his hands,
time machines. Like I was like, man, he's done so much.
Especially towards the end of the series when he tells Bender, I never got to tell her I loved her. He goes, you did like 100 times, but I don't know if she meant, no, I meant it. Like, it was fantastic.
The macaroni.
It spoke to all of us.
But
you
there's
know?
always another thing you can say about stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, if they ever brought it back, I bet you there'd be another take on that whole thing. Like I missed it, or or does the holophoner always make whoever plays it sound celestial and symphonic,
Right.
or you know, was he just very lucky,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or if anyone else picked it up, it would be like.
That's probably how Bender would play.
Depending on the intent behind it all to play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Zoidberg for sure.
Poor
I mean,
Zoidberg.
Talking to that point, like if they ever do bring back the show and everything like that, like because of people loving it. I mean, that was kind of the thing with you're talking about, like the classic car, where it's like I love the fact that it ended because like it's all contained and everyone had their arcs. Everyone like. You know,
Zoidberg having his
like he found love. The professor solved everything. You know, and then
But
finally had a whole
everybody
life.
on every level of that show was a Top Gun.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
he,
from
like, got
Matt
her-
on down, the animators, the track readers, the layouts, backgrounds,
design.
music.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, it's no joking. It's my wife and I's favorite show. We have it, we run it constantly if we're doing things in the house or, you know, to wind down at the end of the night. Let's put on some Futurama. So
I didn't know what to make of the theme when I first heard it. I said, it's cool because it sounds like Louie Louie.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, this marble mouth idiot that sang an anthem for a generation.
Yeah.
Now.
It took me so long to figure out what he was
Well,
saying.
I think there's actually a sketch where he drops the words right before. There's a nugget of information where he dropped the words right before,
like
and he's
the
like,
lyrics
like, okay, wow. But yeah, it's a fascinating show, and coming up on 20 years is a big mark.
The science was correct. The math was correct.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
correct as it could be.
But it
Yeah,
allows you to play with it better because since you get it all right, then you know how to bend all the rules.
Yeah, Ken Keeler would.
He came up with a theory for an episode, an entire new theorem, which I read about.
because
Which
he had
was
a PhD in mathematics or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it was like Harvard and
some
David
Like
Cohen.
a community college.
Somewhere
a
that Amy
small-
Wong would have gone.
Yeah.
David Cohen went to Harvard.
Mars University.
Yeah.
Now, I know we also wanted to bring up, because what we do here at Nerd On is we like to talk about the things that make us nerd on. And we had asked you about 12 Angry Men. And right before we get to that, I just have one last question to round out our 20-year Futurama thing. And it's a little two-parter. Is one, I know you've done both where you mentioned Futurama does a lot of cast recordings all together,
Yes.
but a lot of the time voiceover is a solitary kind of job. I was wondering which you prefer, the strengths of both, I guess.
I like to work ensemble because you work off the energy that's in the room. Some of the funniest stuff is what gets said between the business of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, when they stop, and me and Johnny used to sing like Richie Havens doing the Amtrak song. All aboard Amtrak. There's something about a train that's magic. You know, the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. You know, and Johnny would do, and we would laughing so hard. He'd be out of control laughing so hard that he had to be sent to a corner. And I took a big couch pillow and I had to put it over him.
Yeah.
Oh no.
You could still hear.
Well, I had read one of your favorite things to warm up wasn't doing vocal stretches, and it was just riffing with friends and stuff.
With what was going on,
Yeah.
like that day. You know, I forget. It's always like some absurdity.
Right, which is kind of cool though. But then
From
it
the
gets you in
news.
that ensemble, playful mood where you're on the same wavelength with those people, and you can get in the booth and really kill it.
Yes.
The final follow-up question to this
The
is
final.
Final.
is I'm sure you've been asked this before. Favorite, if you have a favorite episode of Futurama.
I love the Devil's Hands. Yes. And I love the Holophoner episode. But the Devil's Hands was. This is another thing that bedevils me about Ken Keeler. He's a math head. He's a science head. You know, everything is logical, and he doesn't even crack up laughing. And another thing about him, he doesn't like having his picture taken. I
Really?
said, what do you think? Somebody's going to steal your soul? We're all friends here.
Yeah.
We're here to help. So, so he wrote the musicals.
Oh wow.
Whoa.
And he claimed that it's all math. And I'm thinking,
Wow.
no. You
No.
know what? I'm a musician.
Yeah.
There's other stuff that goes on
Beyond
inside. It can't be all clean, clinical,
Yeah.
Equations.
There's rules, and then there's that holds the rules together, the glue. I'm a musician, Corey's a musician, Caitlin's a musician.
Right. So
not a
I
musician.
So there's like a little there's something else.
The magic. The little
Yeah.
magic.
I opened him up one day
Yeah.
because it slipped out that he loved Brian Wilson, or he liked Brian Wilson
yeah.
from the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And I told him about how I played with Brian Wilson
Yep.
from
Yeah.
the Beach Boys. And he suddenly was like in wonder, like curiosity.
Who are you?
That guy had gotten to him,
Yeah.
you know, musically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be like stone cold, but you listen to those songs and they speak on such a highly emotional level. And I don't mean the girls and cars and fun. I mean the stuff that he wrote on Pet Sounds, introspective,
Yeah. The
disenfranchised.
deeper stuff. Yeah.
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 Wow.
You know, because I felt all that stuff. I
Yeah.
wasn't into. Where would you find a hot rod to drive in Roslindale, Massachusetts, or a surfboard?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Go down the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
So to kind of get into next
12
part
Angry.
of our show is we like to talk to our guests about something that they're a nerd about, that they're a fan of.
Well, you
and-
better make it quick because I have to go.
Got a ball game to catch?
She's a beautiful ship. Flying her brains out.
Yeah.
Oh,
I forgot to do Zapp.
But you did it.
There it is. Works.
We'll have some more time.
Coming clutch.
We got 12 jurors. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, we're talking about 12 Angry Men, a film that you really liked. Came out in 1957. Metro Goldwyn Mayer film. Like critically
classic.
acclaimed.
Yeah.
Like number
100%
2.
on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And
still.
parodied here and there.
Yeah, number 2 screen film in all film academics.
It's a film that everybody should see. Yeah. Because of the content. The cleverness of it was that it was done in one room.
Yes.
Yeah.
The original play.
Right.
There was a table and 12 men, and they got to deliver a verdict on a murder suspect. And it's this kid, and there's ethnicity involved. I think he was like Hispanic or something.
I don't think
I don't remember.
They keep it very vague.
Yeah,
on
they're
They
this.
do
Yeah.
keep it
They
vague.
just say he's an inner
I
city
think in
kid.
the stage show it's pretty
But
spoke about. But
Oh.
yeah.
but he understood very little about what happened to him. And they were convinced that he's the murderer. And these guys, you know, there's one guy that's so busy. I like to know when the hell we're going to get out of here, you know. And he was impatient. And then there was another guy that was like, wanted to see this kid, you know,
Go down.
Right.
go
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
and be put away for life, you know.
Yeah.
Because
There's
that
a
was
lot of
Lee J. Cobb. and he got into a fight over the fact that his racism was starting to appear
Oh, yeah.
too close to the surface.
Mr.
And he
Baker.
goes, man, what? He did it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
You saw him. He barely speaks English. You know, and then you find out that something happened in his life
Yeah.
that caused him to act like that. And then there's, well, Henry Fonda appears to be like the foreman of the jury. Maybe not. Maybe it was
There
the
is a
other
foreman,
guy.
but he's just that one guy that just
What was
not
his
guilty.
name? Irving.
Oh.
Do you remember his name?
I do not. I just had Henry Fonda as juror number 8, but
He's going to use that infinite knowledge box.
There's your murder weapon. Ah. What about this? boom, and he puts another
Another
knife
one,
into
yeah.
the table.
It
It
looks
looks
exactly
exactly
the same.
like it. In other words, you could find this. This weapon gets produced. You know, the person that
All over the
that tried the
place.
frame up probably found it in a store, and Henry Fonda finds the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not tedious because it's intense.
Well, the cool thing is that every hard hitting piece of evidence gets, like consecutively or,
Dismantled.
debunked.
Defunct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
as
as
each
they
one goes
go
through.
through the deductions,
Like
and,
the
and
eyewitness, the
Really
person who
working
fu-
it out, like
Yeah.
detail by detail.
Person
But
who-
how could he do that?
the person
if
who
this
called
happened?
the police, the way that the knife was stabbed, and it's like, if you were shorter, how would you stab?
It keeps you guessing.
But also, how does the switchblade get used?
But I mean, we watch, TV or movies, and mostly TV, like on those reality things. I don't know if they
Oh.
show the anatomy of a jury room.
Yeah.
I don't
They
think
kind of keep it out of the.
they do.
And we're left at home judging them.
Yeah,
so, to speak.
this play is just so delightful and majestic that it allows us an inside look, like a scope down your throat or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I can see the insides of this.
Yeah.
I think the closest thing they did to that was a American Crime Story with OJ versus People.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
they just had 1 hour-long episode where it just showed like how the juror there was like there for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Was trying to go
Oh,
crazy.
he led
Yeah.
everybody on a wild goose chase.
But this one shows like the intimacy of it, and like
Right.
the cinematographer even said specifically like they wanted to shoot very wide to show like the geography, and then slowly by the end it's just close-ups to show the claustrophobia that you're getting, and then on the first frame you see juror number 7, Jack Warden, who's like sweating, wiping
Yes.
off sweat. So it's like it's a hot day, opening windows.
Well, the room isn't much bigger than this room here.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe 5 feet more.
Josh,
And that's how small.
our audience doesn't know that we're in a mansion. Everyone,
Yeah, it's a giant room.
We're in a recording studio that's smaller.
It's a mausoleum.
Yes.
But it's very cheap to rent one. You kids don't bother no bodies, though, okay?
Okay.
All right.
but at the very
Leave the stiffs alone.
at the very end, Henry Fonda, has led other people to kind of
Think.
think. And it's not even that they think he's not guilty. They just think that his life is worth more than a 5-minute conversation.
But you go away thinking, wouldn't it be great if everybody was forced to be well thought out?
Yeah.
Because there aren't a lot of well thought out people that you witness, that just seem to be in your face. And people that think with emotions, and they want something to be true so bad that they ignore truth.
Yeah.
That's what 12 Angry Men is. You watch people that are real flawed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
making decisions. That was another powerful point.
Well,
Deciding someone's fate, whether they live or
Yeah.
die.
And it's still really relevant.
It's relevant today.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, specifically with the Jack Warden, who just wants to see the baseball game. He's like pretty amoral. He's like he could care less, guilty or
That's
non-guilty. But specifically, what you're saying, like they're flawed. The one that I really liked seeing the most was E.G. Marshall, juror number 4, who was the day trader.
Yeah.
He was super well thought out. He was a little disconnected from everybody.
He was disconnected.
Yeah.
Like he seemed like the way he played
math.
it seemed like the longer he stayed there, he started to get stiff because maybe there was something about him that would come out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He was
Yeah.
like, I don't know about that.
He's so composed that
Yeah,
he's
so
about
too
to break.
composed.
Yeah. It's about to crack.
yeah.
And I
And
think
then
that
there was
cool.
John Fiedler for voice
Number 2.
obsessed people. He
Oh.
was not Winnie the Pooh.
he
No,
was,
he was juror number 2.
no.
But he's
he
talking
was,
about outside of that.
He was it Piglet or
Piglet.
something?
Piglet, yeah.
And he would go, I don't know about this boy. He had like a boy. He was a man boy.
Yeah.
There were a bunch
Yeah.
of them in those days.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is the one that was super excited to be the juror. Yeah.
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 He's like, this
He's
is
in a
my
great.
first
He's in a
one.
great episode of Twilight Zone too. By the way, one of the Christmas.
Yeah, he was
live
also
Christmas
in a
special.
Star Trek episode where he played the entity of Jack the Ripper.
Right, I haven't seen that.
Make you suffer, die, die.
That is creepy.
Yeah, that
kind
would
of
be very
voice, like,
unsettling.
Nightmare
Yeah.
fuel.
Nightmare fuel.
But it made me crazy when I saw that episode because I said, I know who this is. He's
was doing the same
he's this
thing.
frantic little man that I've heard
Your whole life.
since I was a kid, and there was another frantic little man named Percy Helton, and I used sort of a send up of that guy for a character in Disenchantment.
Oh.
Yeah, the Elf King.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but there was film noir where a beautiful blonde would move into a cheesy apartment complex, and there'd be this dirty little old man that left his door open, you know, so he could catch her like a spider
right.
when she came home from work and stuff. He'd be like, "Oh, Billy, you look wonderful tonight. Oh, you look so beautiful, Billy. I think you and I should go out." You know, and I used him as a character in Disenchantment.
Yeah,
He
my
was
wife
the
and I
Elf
just
King.
started watching that, so that was pretty cool to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
There's just such a richness of all that showbiz periphery. I prefer that to inspiration rather than, you know, it's like, oh God, who am I thinking of? Oh yeah, give me one good Beatrice Arthur for 20. What's his name? Christopher Walken.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody does that, and it's like I like, you know, I'm gonna wrap your legs around your head like a cheap turban. Ma Blanche.
Yeah, it's just the
That was
little more
Beatrice
classic-
Arthur.
yeah.
Come on, stand up. For God's sake. Or Walter, shut up.
It sounds like you use a
God.
lot of, I mean, for me as an actor, I mean, looking at something like 12 Angry Men and just everything that every person has a distinct personality. And then you're also taking into mind those different actors like Henry Fonda. It sounds like you use a lot of inspiration per se, but inspired by people that you've heard that like
Their
voices,
juice.
like, yeah, juice.
Or
So it's like-
essence.
yeah.
Good way to put it.
There was also a guy in 12 Angry Men. You didn't hear much from him, but it's funny that you didn't hear much from him because he's an announcer that's been in tons of commercials.
Yeah.
I don't think in the past 20 years, maybe not, but he had a slight New York accent, and he'd go, you know, well, maybe you fellas don't care, you know, and he would do Boar's Head, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that voice.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
He was the voice of the announcer for Boar's Head.
Yeah.
like the lunch
Meats.
meat kind of.
Yeah, meats, the cuts. Cold cuts.
The New York accent would give him away. Boar's Head.
I mean, that's another part of your career that's so amazing is you've lent your voice to characters that we were talking about it, like the red M&M and then Buzz the bee for how does that? I mean,
Cheerios.
for Cheerios. I mean, how does that feel to be like, oh wow,
I haven't done that bee in like, God, it has to be 20-something years.
Wow.
I mean, that was so part of my childhood too, where it's like
It was
I
one of
ate
those
Honey Nut Cheerios.
high-pitched, genderless,
Yeah, right.
you know, cloying, annoying.
Are you still
Honey Nut Cheerios, it's irresistible.
There it is. What were you gonna say, Ollie?
I was gonna say, are you still actively doing Red M&M?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then,
Have you ever eaten me?
A movie for them yet? You know,
Yeah,
they
they
have
should.
all the
Yeah, where's
production
the
value.
Where's the M&M movie at?
I
the
love the-
commercials are like,
Yeah.
I'm invested in these characters at this
Especially
point.
with the rocket, and then it's like they're like trying to get out. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, they
Well,
can't
there
have
was
a-
an ad exec. He was new, and I figured he had everything to prove. So he had this highfalutin idea where Red was going to get behind a grand piano in a concert hall and sing the Meatloaf song.
I would do anything for.
But I won't do that.
Yeah.
And we had a hard time like finding out how we were going to do it technically because the song is in a key that Red didn't really sing in. So we figured it out. But this guy was a whiz kid. I mean, that commercial knocked everybody on their
Yeah.
ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
remember
I
that.
recall that one.
what
was,
is it? Wait a minute. What is it that he wouldn't do? What
Yeah,
on
right. What is
earth
the
did
what is
she
the question?
ask him to do that he won't do?
Maybe that's the brilliance of it. We have to use our imaginations to.
Got to be an interview somewhere where Meatloaf let it.
Well, he
slip.
wasn't gonna. Red M&M wasn't gonna let girls on a couch eat him whole.
Right.
That's
That's pretty obvious.
A more
that was an
that
obvious.
and
and this and this and this and that. Yeah.
Yeah.
or let Yellow like make a decision.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's
He always
fair.
has to be the
Right.
boss.
Right.
By the way, the yellow M&M.
Yeah.
There used to be this show on TV. It was on HBO. It was a prison show called Oz.
Oz, yeah.
And the worst guy in the prison was this white supremacist, you know, who
It's a
Schillinger.
great show.
Schillinger,
Yeah.
who who was filled with dirty tricks, and he would murder somebody to get his way and everything. And he was actually frightening. So I was married at the time, and I used to go to my house in New York, and I'd come in, and she said, "Have you seen Oz?" I go, "No, I haven't." Sit down and watch this.
Wow.
I've seen this episode, so
Yeah.
sit and watch this. They're playing it again.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, wait for it. Right there. That guy, that MF, he ain't no actor. He's the real deal, you know? And
Yeah.
I went, and she went, "What?" I said, "I know him." "You do?" I said, "Yeah, he's the yellow M&M."
J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is a yellow M&M.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he
He's
was
the real
also
deal.
God. He was everything. He was J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
He stole that Spider-Man movie.
Oh, yeah.
Parker!
Yeah.
You know, and he won an
100%.
Oscar for Whiplash.
Yep.
2 days later, he's in recording an M&M's commercial with me after he won an Oscar.
Oh my
That guy is what you call a journeyman.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't disappear off into Mount Olympus over in Westwood,
Yeah.
you know, and sit in his palatial house and just say, "I won an Oscar."
Yeah.
Kisses Oscar like,
Yeah,
That's
like,
what I
you
do.
know, hard to beat me, huh?
Yeah.
No, he
The
was
love of the
back
craft.
on the trail like a journeyman
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
because to him, and I've always been the same way, it's like everything is of equal importance.
yeah.
It really is. You know, you don't go in like convinced you're going to throw this fight,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because you're just personally not interested,
Yeah.
but they get what they get or whatever.
Yeah.
You're in it.
Yeah, there's a lot
1,000%
of
every time.
actor types that, you know, it's like some of them will have enormous success and then sort of disappear and then sort of sniff around when it's time to come out again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
pay bills,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, but then, you know, then we get people like you who every single job you're giving us 110%. It's the reason you've been around for all of us for as long as you have.
It's almost like I've been doing voices, I think, professionally for almost 39 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I also used to screw around in bands when I was playing music.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the amp would blow up. There was like the electrical thing hadn't been sewn up yet, and there were no roadies. You know, you're just playing a club and your amp blows up. You know, what do you do?
Yeah.
So I used to get the mic and I used to do, God, what would I do? Like Elvis impressions.
Yeah.
Save the show.
Yeah, you gotta
and
distract them. Look over here.
Then I started leaning into it and I started bringing props, you know, expecting a
There you go.
disaster. Like a blonde wig, and Dolly Parton was big at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I used to fill this shirt with like pieces of paper that made it look like cephalothorax. And I used to sing "Here They Come Again,"
Yeah, nice.
like a good little sexist.
Very, very important question. Is there video of this? And can I watch it?
I don't think there is.
Aw.
I don't think there is.
One
Oh,
of those things that happened and was momentary, and if you missed
Those magic
it,
moments
it
you
was
talked
gone.
about.
Yeah.
Everything's a step down after.
But it was like real show business. It wasn't just like playing music. It was like I kind of enjoyed these departures
Right.
and messing around with comedy on stage.
Look where I got you.
Well, when I planned stuff, when I had written stuff and memorized it, it would never go over. It was just like if I went out and didn't have an agenda and just threw shit against the wall to see what sticks, I was better off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't have the discipline.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time and talking to us, talking to our audience.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
wild.
been crazy and amazing and all the things that we ever could have hoped for.
Yep.
Oh,
And
thank you. Whenever we get into the new season of Disenchantment, I'll come back and talk
I would
about
love that.
Oh,
That
I
would
love
be
that.
Yeah,
awesome.
because there's Dave Herman is on it, Maurice LaMarche, Tress McNeil,
Mm-hmm.
John DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the heavy hitters from Futurama.
Is there
Yeah.
anything right now that you'd like our audience to go check out? I mean, Disenchantment, if they can watch it in some other
You can
way.
watch it on Netflix,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think. Let's see what else. Oh, I have a YouTube channel I
Yeah.
put up.
Oh
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
include
it's the
all
real
links.
Billy West.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put
And-
all the links up for you. No
Yeah,
problem.
and I just I film these little things of me just like going off with characters.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it could be sort of a tutorial, but I have to do what I know best because I can't teach you how to be successful. I can't teach you instinct.
Right.
Yeah.
Instinct could be learned, though.
Yeah.
I think it
It's
can
like a
be
muscle that
learned.
you.
Like
But
through-
to have it,
exercise.
that's why they say some people have it, some people just don't.
yeah,
They don't get it. And you'll see a performer and you go, she gets it.
yeah,
Yeah, because you just know. All the green lights light up.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Everything's in alignment.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
but yeah, I'm gonna just keep putting stuff up on my YouTube channel, and I have the BillyWestPodcast.com.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh.
where
I
there's
saw
all
that.
these old episodes of a podcast that I did.
I went through and listened to all those.
You also have
over
a
the
Twitter.
weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the show is just pure silly because
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
super
want to
fun.
talk about religion and I didn't want to be dirty. I was on the Stern Show. I've done
Yeah, right.
all those things. So I wanted it to be just purely absurd. Somebody called it meta absurdism. I'll
Pretty
take
cool
it.
title.
sounds
Yeah,
perfect.
that's a pretty cool title.
take
Take
it.
it. I want
Yeah, it's
people
awesome.
after me for things like, remember when you said this?
Oh, I know.
How about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shout out to 20 years of Futurama.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
for bringing characters to life that have
Big
made us
show.
laugh and also cry a lot.
I have separation anxiety. I really,
yeah,
that was my favorite show
Twice, huh?
of all time.
you and me both.
Well, it kept coming back.
Yeah.
So
We're pretty loud. The
they
fans.
weren't sure how to do an ending
fair.
episode. They kind of left stuff.
They did it
Open.
beautifly.
That's-
like,
it was the
honestly,
best
Didn't
they
they?
could've done.
Yes, they did.
Beautifully.
I agree with you.
They did like life goes on. It's a life cycle. So it's
I
like,
had
let's
an
do it again.
existential crisis when that episode came out. I was like,
Oh, I cried.
my God.
I cried. I
Well,
was
they
like, so
they
good.
addressed that in a ecological episode. Micro life and
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh, with the circle. Yeah.
amphibious. Like no reason.
No, it just happens.
It
But,
just
uh,
happens.
And then robot.
yeah, it's
the
a,
robot
it's a,
life.
it's a
yeah.
wonderful a show that can make you laugh that hard and actually feel something really real within the same episode is pretty magic. So
Well,
thank you
I was
for all that.
really wistful when I watched Fry's Dog.
Oh,
I was
Bark.
really wistful, and I read it. I knew what it was about. I recorded it, but when I saw it, I was just moved. I had because I love animals.
Yeah.
I'm bonded with a few of them, and I always say it's a cliche. They make us better than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, I wish I was half the man those stupid cats thought I was.
Yeah.
I got a cat at home just like that.
I mean, just to let you know, highly respected your work. Like I think top 5 episodes, like 4 of them are like when Fry finds out about the Shamrock with Yancey with his mom.
Oh,
Boy, they
the
knew
mom
how
of
to
the
write
dream.
these things
Yeah.
that would like shake
Rip
your
you.
soul.
Oh yeah.
to shreds.
But I mean, even with the Beast with 1,000 Backs, or is it Bender's Big Score, where you find out about the future and the code and
Yeah.
so how he lived his life, and it's like I don't know. There's
Yeah.
a lot of really great
really
moments
well
that happen
done.
with Fry, and it's like,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Well, he was very
Beautiful.
lucky for such a character like him that is so unassuming to have all these things have happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I loved that show, and if they ever open the door again, I
on
think
it.
it would be fantastic.
We're crossing our fingers.
Yeah.
all of them.
All of us.
Well,
yeah,
thank you
me
for-
too.
Thank you for everything that you gave to us.
Oh, my
really, it's-
pleasure.
Yeah.
Everybody at home, thank you
It was
so
either
much.
that or drive a truck full time.
Take your pick.
Everybody at home, thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our patrons who keep this show, keep our lights on. We appreciate you. Thank you to everybody that shares
Patroning them.
the show. Patroning,
Thank you.
Patroning us.
Throw money at these people. It's well worth it.
Listen to Billy West.
Yes. Yeah.
Billy West.
If you want and can.
We have another podcast first Monday of every month, Trope Time. But yeah, it's such an awesome episode. Thank you,
Yes.
Billy West.
That's all there, folks.
You know the drill. As always,
Nerd on.
Ending broadcast.